The next essential function that an animal must perform is movement. Um, so it does an animal no good if they can see a predator, understand that that a predator is coming to get them, but then they can't move to get away from the predator or have some sort of defense mechanism. And so one of those defense mechanisms is to move. Um, so you do have some kinds of animals that will be sessile, meaning they're going to spend their adult lives attached to one spot, and they're going to have other defense mechanisms from predators. And so these animals are not really going to like get up and swim or move around. They will be attached to one spot, but they may have some sort of muscle system that allows for them to sway or contract something and move parts of their body. They just don't get up and swim around. But most animals are motile, meaning they move around. And in order for them to be able to move around, they're going to have these things called muscles. And the muscles are going to help them to move by contracting. So the contraction of the muscles is actually what generates the force that animal needs in order to move. And also in order for an animal to move, they have to have a skeleton, or some sort of solid support system in the body in order for them to pull on or mostly pull on in order to be able to get up and move around. So for example, you have muscles attached to your bones, and then you're supposed to pull on your bones and allow for you to walk. So same thing goes with an animal. They're going to have some sort of muscles and then some sort of support system in the body. And you have an exoskeleton and an endoskeleton. An exoskeleton is going to be a skeleton that is on the outside of the body, and an endoskeleton is going to be a skeleton on the inside of the body. An example of an animal in the ocean that has an exoskeleton would be like the crab. So when you're like cracking open a crab to eat all the delicious meat that's inside, what you're actually cracking through is the crab's skeleton. An exoskeleton is on the outside of their body. Whereas like you have an endoskeleton. Your skeleton is on the inside of your body. That's your bones. So we refer to both the muscles and the skeleton together, producing movement, as the musculoskeletal system. So you'll hear that term several times throughout this course. And then the next thing that all living things have to be able to do is they have to be able to reproduce. In order for a species to survive, they have to be able to reproduce themselves and pass on their genetic material. And we've already kind of talked about this a little bit, but you have asexual and sexual reproduction. In asexual reproduction, you have genetically identical offspring. And in sexual reproduction, you have genetically different offspring. We're going to go a little bit more into depth in the sexual reproduction. So in sexual reproduction, an animal can either have live young or they can lay eggs. If they have live young, then obviously the young are going to pretty much be mini adults. Whereas if they lay eggs, they have a couple different developmental patterns that can occur, which this we'll talk about on the next slide. So here you go. So if an animal lays eggs to reproduce, they can either go through direct or indirect development. In direct development, the babies look like miniature adults, and basically all they do is just increase in size, but they don't actually change like their overall form. So you can see a picture on your screen of the grasshopper. So the egg hatches, and what hatches from the egg is this little nymph that looks pretty much like the adult form. All that really changes is the size. So it grows. In indirect development, the egg hatches as a little larva, which is like an immature stage, and it typically doesn't look anything like the adults. And then as the larva grows, it undergoes this process called metamorphosis, where it changes shape drastically, and the adult form looks nothing like the larval form. And so the most common example that we use for this is the butterfly. So the butterfly undergoes metamorphosis, and you get a beautiful butterfly from an ugly looking caterpillar. So they do have to also be able to reproduce. The last type or essential function that all animals must perform is excretion. That is basically getting rid of metabolic wastes. That's like what your kidneys do, where they filter your blood and get rid of all the waste products that are being carried around in your blood and getting rid of those out of your body. So that is the last essential function that animals must carry out.